Naval supremacy has often been the deciding factor in a nation's rise to prominence, and there are many a navy around the world with hundreds of years of proud history in service to their given nation. And so it's only natural that in most armed forces around the globe, it's tradition for the other branches to make fun of the navy for varying reasons. With Japan being the exceptions, since, island nations tend to rely on their strong navies for protection and expansion, and as such, those nations have a tendency to not like it when you make fun of the boat boys. Thus, it should come as a no surprise that Japan, the nation that gave us Girls und Panzer, would also provide us with cutesy anime girls operating even cuter anime warships. On that note, I will be making a few comparisons to Girls und Panzer in this video for obvious reasons, and if you'd be interested in a more detailed look into the army-themed cute girls doing cute things to military hardware, click here for that or find the link in the description after you watch this video. And so, High School Fleet, it's definitely one of the animes that has ever been made. Set in a world where a certain orange man became the president of the United States, again, and ignored the fact that global warming is definitely a thing, sea levels have risen uncontrollably and the vast majority of Japan has been swallowed by the ocean. And as they aren't Dutch, instead of building increasingly tall dikes, the Japanese people have opted to embrace their maritime traditions and build floating cities and a society that would make the Venetians green with envy. But if an island nation needs a strong naval presence, then a floating one needs an even greater one, and so the government hatched a clever plan to indoctrinate the impressionable youth into military service at a young age by creating the Blue Mermaids. A peaceful force of police of the sea equipped with vast fleets of top-of-the-line warships that in no way, shape or form will ever be used for warfare ever. The point being that young girls will look up to these heroines of the waves and join the schools that clearly don't promote naval supremacy through strength of arms by having the students operate warships instead of learning life skills like in a normal school. I mean, who needs math when you can spend your high school years blowing shit up in a World War II era battleship, ignoring the fact that the ability to operate a vessel that is nearly 100 years out of date doesn't exactly correlate to serving on a modern missile destroyer, but still. This cheerful indoctrination process goes on until one day things go horribly wrong, when the student ship Harakaze arrives late to her rendezvous with the rest of the school's fleet of first-year students, and is fired upon by their instructor in a display of naval gunnery, so poor that her crew should just all quit and join the Air Force instead. And yes, there is an explanation to all of this. Hamsters. And if that makes no sense to you whatsoever, welcome to the club. Although, I will say, here the reasoning behind getting the cutesy anime girls onto the ships makes a lot more sense than in Girls und Panzer, that being about the only thing that does. For example, there are also boys' schools that do the same thing as the girls do, aka blow shit up in whole ships for the hell of it, with some differences in their fleet structures, such as the boys are the only ones to operate submarines, whereas the girls only have surface combatants. And then you realize that the Blue Mermaids are seemingly a girls-only club, and begin to question why would the guys ever do this, and to that I say, fucked if I know. The anime never explains it, but then again, it's one of those shows where you really shouldn't look too closely at anything, since none of it will stand up to any closer scrutiny. For comparison's sake, Girls und Panzer is an anime that replicates World War II era tank combat in a mostly believable manner, even if it's exaggerated for effect. Meanwhile, High School Fleet goes full-on anime with World War II ship skins plastered on top, and pays next to no attention to the real thing outside of small segments dotted here and there, potentially because spending hours on end bombarding a strategic target would not make for a very fun viewing experience. And honestly, the end result isn't terrible. It's not great either, but it's entertaining if nothing else. It's like they took every naval movie ever and repeated the tropes with cute anime girls and a venerable hero ship. From the battles with the tall water spouts as shells detonate nearby, to the tension of being hunted by a submarine, even if they are in the one class of World War II ship that submersibles of the period would avoid like the plague, but just ignore that part. They even have engine trouble putting them in danger they could otherwise avoid, and come to the aid of a sinking civilian cruiser in what I'd argue is one of the best episodes of the entire series. And yet, there are things that bother and even annoy me about the ship combat portrayed. In saying this, I am not an expert in naval warfare of any kind, as tanks are predominantly my interest, and as such, if I get some things wrong, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Anyway, the vast majority of the school ship's operations have been automated and upgraded with modern technology so that they all require a crew of roughly 30 people, i.e. it's one classroom per ship. This in and of itself is fine and mostly doesn't play into what's going on in the anime, although they don't have any teachers on board, so it's the bird approach of kick them out of the nest and they either fly or die. But the problems arise with how incredibly inconsistent all of this is. The Horekaze, our hero ship for example, comes equipped with radar and sonar, and while neither is up to scratch when compared to what a modern warship boasts, their existence is constantly just ignored when it suits the writing. In a radar-equipped ship, they have a person using the old Mark 1 eyeball to spot targets, and they are more than happy to utilize their sonar to send Morse code to the submarine with active pings, but refuse to use it to spot said submarine or its torpedo launches. AddedCheese here to clarify. They use hydrophones to detect when the submarine is launching, but if they actually have a sonar, like the pings would suggest, then they should also be able to find out where the sub is launching from, and that's the bits that's missing. Also, the submarine itself, you know, the one class of naval vessel that really likes to have sonar, seemingly doesn't have it, because reasons, I guess. And the same inconsistencies plague almost everything in High School Fleet. Whereas its tank-themed cousin made sense, in universe at least if not in reality, here things are just a hot mess of conflicting ideas at times. For example, the show constantly brings up how outclassed and outgunned the Horekaze is, and how a single car-sized shell from her opponents would blow the ship clean out of the water, and yet nobody ever gets hurt beyond a few scratches, leading to this odd imbalance of, oh no, we're all going to die, no wait, it's actually fine. But none of that matters so long as the big guns never tire and the shooty boom boom bits are fun, right? And yeah, I'd say the action itself is really fun. Not without its issues, of course, but I generally liked how they portrayed most of the battles. We will ignore the submarine bits here. Also, yes, I know it being World War II, it wouldn't be a submarine as such, but a submersible. However, on that note, returning to my previous point of this is full-on anime battles with warship skins, a lone destroyer would never survive such engagements with contemporary warships, let alone when it goes against the Independence-class instructor ship. Still, the suspense of disbelief is well maintained, if strained at times. That being said though, there is one thing that really irritated me, and it's not strictly speaking the fault of High School Fleet itself, and it's most certainly not rooted in the show, but towards the latter half of the 12-episode run, you see the student ship Musashi take on two whole fleets of modern warships, perpetuating the tired old myth that we should still be using battleships because they are somehow superior. Even if the engagements aren't about using the full capabilities of modern warships, and the end goal isn't to sink the Musashi but to rescue her crew, it still falls dangerously close to the battleship superior line of thinking. There's even a whole segment where the top brass is discussing how taking on the Musashi would need equivalent or greater firepower, but then lamenting that the other Yamato-class vessels are either being repaired or otherwise occupied, completely ignoring the fact that a single one of their instructor ships could sink the entire student navy if it needed to. And yes, from a story standpoint this makes sense. The Musashi is the final challenge to the crew of the Horekaze to step up and save their fellow students against all odds, and so it needed to appear as the greatest hurdle yet. The problem being, it already was. That's the whole point from the get-go. The Musashi dwarfs the Horekaze in everything, including prestige to her captain, and speaking of the captain, the cast is, not great. Usually in Cute Girls Doing Cute Things you fall into the genre of slice of life, which more often than not means great casts carrying those whole shows, but no. It's Girls und Panzer all over again, where the crews are fine, nothing more and nothing less, since it's the ships everyone actually cares about anyway. And they are pretty damn good. The Horekaze even plays the hero ship role really well, getting upgrades along her journey, morphing the Kagero-class destroyer into something unique for her crew, and having a fat orange cat named after the legendary Isoroku Yamamoto was a great addition as well. I'm not really going to talk about the production that much since it is an 8-year-old anime, so you won't be finding the kind of quality that most modern fans have come to expect, but it's fairly similar to Girls in Panzer here. Again, not great, not terrible. Even if some of the perspectives are a little all over the place, mainly in regards to range. Big guns, and especially danger sticks, are shot way beyond the horizon, and even if the numbers themselves are represented correctly, it gets a little messy to follow when the visuals show ships right next to each other and the characters tell us how they're actually kilometers apart. But again, the things that matter, aka the big boats with big guns, look and sound pretty good, and I actually rather like the renderings of the floating cities. They aren't as objectively cool as city carriers, but still, not bad. Is it an anime you should watch though? Well, that depends. Unlike with its track distant relation, I cannot directly recommend High School Fleet to all of you hardcore naval fans out there since it's so all over the place. But if, like me, your focal point lies somewhere else in the wider sphere of militaria, then it's a fun anime to watch with your brain mostly turned off. I'd say it's worth a try for everyone with an interest in things that make other things go boom, but I also wouldn't be surprised if the inconsistencies bothered you too much to continue watching beyond a few episodes. As for the casual viewer, the show does do a good job of explaining what, why, and how things happen, but it might still be a stretch given how warship heavy the show is at the end of the day. Still, give it a try. It's not an anime that would take itself too seriously, spiced with some fireworks and a passing attempt at creating tension, and if that's your thing, then it's more than entertaining enough. Personally, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. Perfectly average, but since the topic interests me, I wouldn't be opposed to watching it again. And with that, thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed that. If you did, do all of the YouTube things of likes and comments and subscribes, or dislike if you didn't enjoy it, I guess. All comments help with the algorithm gods, and if you would like your name shouted out here at the end, you can always support the channel by becoming a channel member and soon a Patreon as well. The Patreon will have all the same content as it is here on YouTube, except ad-free for hopefully a couple of bucks a month, depends on my taxation office. Anyway, with this, I have been Cheese, and I hope to see you next time with more anime goodness. Ta-ta for now.